Today, what I want to do is I want to go over the Tor browser. Now, everyone has probably experienced their first encounter of the dark web. In most cases, it's probably stupid media outlets referring to it as the dark web
It's called the dark web, and people aren't using it to buy shoes.
because anything that isn't on Google must be evil, right? Therefore, my bank must be evil because no one can access my account on Google. Wow, stupid. All right. I don't want to. I'm not here to complain about that today. What I'm here to do is I want to talk about the Tor browser, right, and sort of more of the theoretical ideas behind it. So I thought, what better way to do it than the magic of art? Ignore this. Ignore this picture. Actually, don't ignore this picture. You should do everything that the picture told you to do. The best way to think about the Tor network is imagine you. So this is you. I assume you're all circles. I'm sure we have some squares and diamonds in the world, right? And then what you do is you go out and then you contact your internet service provider, right? Your ISP, right? And your ISP goes and fetches your internet for you, right? And of course, this is how everyone imagines the internet, right? You go and you type in, hey, I want to go to YouTube, right? I want to go to youtube.com. Then your internet service provider will go out to the internet and say, oh yeah, youtube.com is at this IP address, right? And what this does is this is how the internet functions. The problem with this is there's a lot of entities that can go and peer into what your ISP is doing, right? Or in some cases worse, what your ISP will do to you, which is not very good, right? So in the case of what your internet service provider can do to you, right? We have things like, like marketers, right? Marketers are always the go. Companies are just obsessed with selling your information and making a quick buck off of their user base, right? So that's the problem with marketers, and I'm sure, you know, sure everyone can relate to this one. Although, if you ever wondered why, you might get, and they also the other worst one is sometimes ads will get injected, and those aren't from websites. They're from your internet service provider. Disgusting. And don't even get me started on that's just what your internet service provider can do to you, right? This isn't even accounting for things like what if there's like a bad actor, like, bad actor inside of your internet service provider and they just want to spy on you in particular, right? That's not good, right? What about a three-letter agency, right? So what if the three-letter agency wants to go and spy on everything in your internet service provider, right? And all of these things are generally not good. This is the kind of thing that we want to try to I would hope people would like to try and avoid, right? Never mind the fact that, on this end there's also the same marketing people try to go through here to get information to tell the circles apart from the polygons and the diamonds. They want to know everything about you they possibly can, right? And this is sort of, and this bit framework that you see in front of you, this is the basis by which the Tor browser is made, right? So the Tor project has what's called the Tor browser, right? The Tor browser is actually a fork of Firefox, and the latest version of the Tor browser is actually based on Firefox ESR, right? The long-term server, the extended support release of Firefox, right? Now with more fingerprinting protection and improved performance than usual, right? And you're probably wondering, well, why aren't they using the normal Firefox, right? And it's because like a lot of these mainstream web browsers, so like let's take like Firefox or like Chromium, move often way too quickly, right? And rather than settling on something like, oh well, they could try just using Chromium as a base, right? They chose to do Firefox because of Firefox extended support release, right? And this extended release is just easier for the developers when they're updating, so that way they're ensured to get the same quality of life and security fixes that normal Firefox has had. That's a lot more rigorously tested and doesn't move as quickly in terms of development. So like what you would see in like a Chromium-based web browser, right? That's sort of the logic behind it. Plus the Tor project only really started on this before Google Chrome was even invented, right? So there's a lot of historical reasons as to why Firefox is used for the Tor browser, and I think you'll know if that's right for you or not. And I don't know about you, but I definitely feel this way. I think marketers are the biggest threat to you, right? And you can say, but I use an ad blocker, right? Ad blockers, like yes, even your oh so precious uBlock Origin. One, don't get anything, and number two, are do jack diddly squat to anyone who knows any better, because in some ways ad blockers will just make marketers know that you use an ad blocker. So it's just making it worse for you in some ways. I look, I get it's a convenience thing, okay, but like let's be honest here, okay? Ad blockers are pointless, right? Everyone has had an experience. Like if you go to Twitch to watch a video or whatever, it's like you get dumped in it, an ad gets dumped on you. It's like, we've all seen, or like, you go to like the I don't know, like the Washington Post, and they show you like a big like banner saying turn off your ad blocker because we want to lock you out of our website, that sort of thing, right? And the Tor browser is a way of circumventing all of that. Now I also want to clarify here, the Tor project, I mean the Tor browser itself isn't perfect. I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have, but let's go back to before, right? We got the circles, we got the squares, and we got the diamonds in the world, right? And what they do is they go and get their internet from their internet service provider, you know, and then they go and then your internet service provider goes and gets it from the rest of the internet, right? The problem with this is with a lot of this, the single point of failure here is your internet service provider, right? It's just one entity, right? So the Tor project aims to do to decentralize this process, right? So instead of sending you through one entity, right, the Tor project actually sends you to three different entities, right? And these are what are called as nodes, right? So think of each of these pear-looking shapes. Think of them as nodes, right? So each node is your gateway to the rest of the internet, right? And what they do is each connection that's sent from each node serves a particular purpose. And the reason why there's three of these, right? The reason why there's three is because it's trustless, right? And if what let's say like even if like let's say one of these servers, these random hosted servers in the world, someone wants to do something bad to you, right? let's well, one of the protections that you have is if one of them wants to do bad to you, because of the other two in the chain, they actually protect this sort of behavior, because someone can know, oh, I know, this square or this diamond is trying to connect to the internet, right? But what they don't see is where you're trying to connect to, right? All they know is that you are a Tor user, right? And then likewise, if you're in the middle node here, they're blinded. They know that these two Tor nodes are connecting to them, but they can't actually see who is connecting to it or who's going from it. And then with this one here, they can see everything you're doing, but they can't see who is doing what. So this three-way process that you see here is central to understanding how the Tor browser works, right? And namely, the most important parts right here is this part, right? So this part right here, this is the most important one, right? And this is what's called your guard relay, right? And guard relays are what you use to connect to the Tor network, right? And in certain countries, right, you're actually they block the Tor network, right? So for example, if you live in Russia, I hope you don't live in Russia now, but let's say you do, right? You live in Russia during this time, right? Because Russia does not appreciate internet freedom, right? The famous governing body, the Roskomnadzor, really do not like people having internet freedom or saying things they don't like, right? And the guard node also is your first Tor relay. But what happens when, like, let's say a government blocks out your guard relay? What do they do, right? Well, the first thing that you can do is you can use what's called a bridge, right? It's a server that replaces your guard node, right? But it's designed to look something innocent, you know. It's this kind of thing that you would see hosted on, you know, like AWS, you know, maybe like Google or like whatever, you know, like Vulture or Linode, right? A lot of people, or like, I don't know, like Hetzner, like there's a lot of really popular like VPS solutions or like really popular cloud solutions. A lot of reasons why a lot of people use AWS and Google is because they're incredibly common, right? And a lot of countries blocking out Google and AWS is essentially a death sentence for a lot of services that are run in the country, right? Because it's like if you block like Amazon, Google, and Microsoft from like even doing anything, it makes it really infeasible for censorship to actually function properly, right? You can't use a lot of these smaller VPS providers because they might not be on the you know the fly of like you know government, but generally what a lot of people do is they use bigger services, right? Like these like the bigger cloud services, right? And then new to the Tor project, there's also a protocol of what's called Snowflake, right? And Snowflake is actually a network which pulls from people who run a browser extension on their computers, right? You can download an extension for Chrome and Firefox, and then you can use this to host your own guard node using like you know Chrome or Firefox to give other people the ability to access the Tor network. And you know, I'm not saying that you have to do it, but I think it's really interesting that you are able to do that now. So it makes giving access to other people on the Tor network much easier than it used to be, right? And then there's the middle relay here. It's all just part of the blinding process, right? And then there's the exit relay, right? And the exit relay, again, is they're the people who are the real, have to deal with the real grief of everyone. You know, they're the people who look up, you know, things that they're probably not supposed to, things that might be illegal, things that might violate copyright. And they do this all for free, too. Most of the people who do this sort of thing are all volunteers. So please be nice to your exit operators, okay? No illegal activity. I don't endorse any illegal activity here, okay? So if you're gonna do something, you're gonna do it legally. You're gonna do it the right way. Okay, so do not do anything illegal. If you do something illegal, I am not responsible. Okay, in fact, you are making it harder for all of these other people to do what they want to do because you're making your that life hell for the poor exit relay operator who runs like your internet, right? So please be nice to them. Don't break the law, uh, and you know, just be a good citizen, okay? So now that we actually understand, oh, this is how, you know, this is how the Tor browser works, right? How do you actually download it? Now, you might be tempted when you go to the Tor project's website, oh, you can go and download it, right? And then you're going to get really confused because it's like signature, what? And then there's a download button, and it's like, it's probably a little confusing how to download. So easiest methods to download the Tor browser, okay, is the first one, chocolatey. It's hilarious. This icon, this is just proving my age, but this is what the Tor browser used to look like. Yeah, it doesn't look like this anymore. You can see it's a different color purple now, right? And you can download from Chocolatey, and you just do Choco install Tor browser. You want to download it on your Mac, you do brew cask install Tor browser, right? It's just a homebrew cask and an auto update, right? And now if you're on Linux, this is where it gets a little complicated, right? You might be tempted to say, oh, I'll just go here and download it. And in some certain scenarios, that might be the best course of action, right? But what I'm going to recommend instead is something a little bit different, right? And what I'm going to recommend is to install this. This is a Flatpak. And the reason why I'm recommending a Flatpak is twofold, right? Number one, Flatpaks offer better security than a lot of native applications on your computer, right? And I don't know what you're going to be doing with your Tor browser, but I want to be safe when I use a Tor browser, okay? So you want to use, and the Flatpaks are a great way of not sacrificing any convenience while using some of the power that you're given with the Tor browser. What you're really doing is you're not just downloading a Tor browser, right? You're using what's called the Tor browser-launcher, right? And it's developed by Micah Lee from The Intercept. He's the security director of the online paper The Intercept. And what this program is designed to do is it's a Python script designed to help you auto download the Tor browser and also verify a GPG signature, which is really difficult for a lot of people. And it also supplies for, like Debian based distributions, for example, or Arch based distributions, for example, app armor profiles, so that if the Tor browser ever gets compromised, it mitigates some of the damage that's done. And it also creates a nice desktop icon in your application menu or whatever, so that you can use it. And then you can also set your Tor browser as your default browser. So if you really want to daily drive the Tor browser, using the Tor browser launcher is a great way of setting the Tor browser as your default launcher. And the funniest one of all, it plays a modem sound when you open Tor, because Tor is really, really slow. And you're like, whoa, wait, why didn't you mention that before, right? So if we go back to the graph here, because you're traveling to only one server, right? This is the speed that most people expect, right? But when you're traveling to, imagine you're connecting to your ISP, right? But multiply it by 3, right? So each one progressively makes your web traffic slower. And it actually does take a long time to connect to the Tor network. But it's not as bad as you think. Like back in the old days, this actually used to be a really bad problem. But I'm actually, surprised that, and I'm proud to say, like, ever since last year, the Tor browser is able to support streaming video. Yes, like, like watch YouTube or whatever. Yes, you can watch YouTube in the Tor browser, right? Um, and I actually think that's really cool. I want to push more people to use something like, use the Chocolatey package, use the Homebrew package, or use the Tor browser launcher, right? And last reason to use the Tor browser launcher, I'm only saying this because of people who are running stable distributions. I've made a rant about this before, but I'm hammering home why I hate stable distributions, right? The problem with Debian's packages, right, is they're usually very late on updating the Tor browser launcher, right? You can download the Tor browser launcher through apt, but the problem with doing so is oftentimes, what if the Tor browser's GPG signature changes, and it's going to take years for the Tor browser launcher to update their thing just to work, right? So instead of using something like the Tor browser launcher from, like from Debian's repositories, or from Ubuntu's repositories, which is kind of old and crusty and doesn't quite work as well, right? Try using the Flatpak of it. I couldn't find a snap package of it. I'm sorry, Ubuntu users, but you have to try the Flatpak one. The Flatpak one actually works remarkably well, and that's where I'm going to push most people to actually go and do. I mean, what you'd expect from this sort of thing, you need to have FlatHub installed. You just do Flatpak install, Tor browser, right? And if you just do that, you'll actually see here, it's the application com.github, Tor browser launcher, and you'll get it. It's pretty much this, but I already have it installed right now. And I'll actually show you what this looks like when you run it, right? You can see it actually appears in the menu, right? And that's what one of the best things about this is. It has this nice integration into your browser, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click the browser, right? This is my first time opening it, and it says here, it's like we're downloading the Tor browser for the very first time, right? So what it's doing first is it's going to go and download the Tor browser, right? And if you're in a country which censors the Tor browser, it'll also auto detect and build a bridge for you over the Tor network to help you download it. And you can see right here, it's verifying the GPG signature, and the verification succeeded, so it's installing it. And if you're on Mac or Windows, you're never gonna have to deal with this sort of thing. You'll like your package manager, like Chocolate or Homebrew, actually do this for you, right? And here we are with the Tor browser. So the first thing that you'll notice with the Tor browser is it presents you with this menu, right? And so this menu is going to be the first thing. It's going to be presented to you when you open the Tor browser, right? So you can connect automatically, or just click the connect button to connect. So if you live in a country that censors the Tor browser, click on this button here, which says configure connection. And it might not even be a country. It might even be something as dumb as your university's Wi-Fi network, right? Or, something like a coffee shop, which which the owner has an aggressive firewall, which blocks the Tor network, right? The general things like that, right? or in a situation where you feel like the internet might be monitored and you don't want someone to know that you're using the Tor network. It's another big reason why we use a lot of, people use a lot of things like, like the bridge relays, right? So if we go back to my little drawing here. So we'll go back over here, and you can also click here to test your internet. Look, I'm online. Of course I am. But you can also come here and here. So if you need to bypass the network, right, you can go to this part here where it says bridges, right? You can select a built-in bridge, and they have multiple built-in bridges here. So they have OBS4, which is just a totally random one. They have Snowflake, which is again people volunteers who host the browser extension on their computer, so you can connect to the Tor network safely. And then here, which uses a Microsoft web server, right? So again, because because Windows is so popular and Windows Server is so popular, a country or like an IT network trying to ban every Microsoft IP address like is not feasible, right? And you can click on any one of these if you wanted to use them, right? What you can also do is if you try all of these and they don't work, right? You can actually just go here and click on this button here which says request a new bridge. And then what you can do here is you're going to be presented with a robot's worst nightmare, the CAPTCHA, right? And you got to type in the letters to get your thing, right? And then what they'll do here is they'll actually generate for you new bridges that you can use, right? So these new bridges are what you can use to circumvent, any website blocking, or if you want to mask the fact that you use Tor from your internet service provider or your home network or your home network or your school network or your work network, whatever. But you can do all of that, right? But I'm not going to use any of these right now. I'm just going to use because I know my internet is uncensored, at least in terms of, the Tor network. I'm actually just going to connect normally, and then you'll see there's this purple bar at the top, which is like, hey, we're connecting to the internet. So now you can see that I'm connected to the Tor network, right? And then you'll see presented with, like a big thing that says explore privately, right? And then you can also read the menu or whatever, or even read the change notes, right? So this is generally where you would start. You may start this big new tab screen or whatever, right? And after that, the Tor browser is visually, the Tor browser looks really similar to, like what you would see with Firefox, right? And so let's just visit a website and show you what I mean, right? So you can even check your connection. So if you go to check torproject.org, I'll leave a link in the description. So if you go to check.torproject.org, you can actually see here, congratulations, your browser is configured to use the Tor network, right? And you generally just want to go here, make sure that your connection's actually working. You can see here this IP address. So this IP address is one of the Tor exit relays, right? So this shows that I'm actually properly connected to the Tor network safely, right? And that shows that this is working, first of all, right? But what does browsing the Tor browser actually look like, right? There's probably, you need to have like a sort of like mentality when you go into like browse on things of the Tor browser. Well, I think the best way of putting on it is the idea of you need to sort of separate your identities from each other. And you're like, well, what do you mean by identities? I only have one identity, right? Well, when I say identities, I mean like I'm talking about the things like, would you separate, things like what would you browse on when you're at work, right? Or what are the things that you would go on when you open your browser when you're like at home, right? Or when you're out in a coffee shop, right? Generally it's things like that, right? And the Tor browser is a way of segmenting these identities so that they can't be linked to each other, right? So you need to sort of have the mentality of when I open the Tor browser, right? I've become one with the personality of what I'm going to be doing, right? Because keep in mind, the Tor browser is also specially configured so that everyone looks the same, but one of the defining traits is how each one of those little bits of the Tor browser are different from each other, right? So, and with that in mind, let's go over some ground rules, okay? And I'm going to put them on screen right now. All right. Ground rule number one, okay? Don't log into anything, right? It's like, now I understand there are situations where you might need to log into something, but logging into something is essentially declaring to the rest of the world, hey, I am blah, blah, blah. and I use Tor, right? Generally, you don't want to do that, right? Um, because it's not fees. So like, don't go to your bank and like don't go to your bank and log. Like let's say you want to go to like I don't know, like chase.com. You want to go and log into your bank. I'm not saying you should do this. Please don't do this, right? Because if you do this, it's a quick and easy way of getting you locked out of an account, and you're gonna have to be on a call with someone from your local bank office or on a support helpline trying to get them to open your the credentials for your account again and say, yes, I did access my server from like Moldova or like Czechoslovakia or whatever, right? So please don't go logging into stuff. It's like a lot of these things too, like shopping websites, so like if you go to like Amazon or whatever, don't log into your Amazon account. It's a nightmare, right? They're gonna flag you as fraud behavior. They might reject you from buying stuff. You can't even enter in like payment information, right? So don't log into stuff or buy or like buy things through like using like fiat money. Okay, like it doesn't really work, right? And heck, in some cases, like like these cryptocurrency exchanges like Coinbase or whatever, you can't log in because they won't let you, right? So don't log into stuff, right? It's a really quick. That's a really I know it's really long to the point, but don't log into stuff. You're only asking for trouble, and it kind of defeats the purpose of the Tor browser. If you're logging into something, just use like a VPN or your normal internet connection. Okay, I don't like they already know it's you. You're not triggering no one. That's rule number one. Don't log into stuff. All right. Rule number two, right? Don't install any extensions. And you're like, what? I can't install like uBlock Origin? No, well, okay. Well, you can install extensions, but should you install extensions? And the answer is no, because remember, like the Tor browser is built so that every single person who uses it looks exactly the same. What you're doing is, well, let's say I install, I don't know, like let's say I install Privacy Badger, right? It is a popular one, right? Let's say you install Privacy Badger because I want to block people from tracking me, right? The problem with this is out of the 952,000 people who use Privacy Badger, right? How many of these 952,000 people actually use the Tor browser and also have this installed, right? And this is where, that's where that's a problem, right? You're essentially signaling that that all these Tor browsers that are in the rest of the world look the same, but hey, this one just looks a teensy bit different, right? And this this is one of the things that defeats some of the protection that the Tor browser provides you, right? And as demonstration purposes, right? The Tor browser only comes with one extension. It used to come with two, but that one got removed, so you should only have one extension installed. That's the extension NoScript. So we already covered, don't log into stuff, don't download extensions, right? But the third rule that you should have in mind is be prepared for websites to hate your guts. I already talked about it with logins, at least, right? But if I go to, something like something innocent like YouTube, right? You can see it's taking a while, right? Sometimes YouTube will actually really like you, right? So for example, it's sort of taken its time here, but YouTube's actually seems to be quite okay, and obviously thinks that I'm somewhere else in the world. I assume Germany because I see Deutschland here, so that's Germany. I know my German. Any Germans comment down below. Tell me, is this actually German? Okay. But generally speaking, what happens with the Tor browser is you can actually go and like do this with certain websites, right? So like if you go to like I don't know, here's a good life hack website. I don't actually use it, but it's a good life hack website for all you young kids out there. Camel.com, right? Oh, you respect my privacy, don't you? But they're like an Amazon price tracking website, right? But one of the things you should know is they actually will just kick you out at certain points, right? And you're like, well, it can't just be like, like big companies like YouTube or like shopping websites. No, here's where it gets even funnier. If you go to certain WordPress websites, you won't even be allowed to access. I think I just got lucky. This one isn't actually doing anything. But you can get blocked out of accessing even something as stupidly innocent as Linux Mint's website because Linux Mint uses Sucuri, and Sucuri's firewall is specifically designed to block Tor exit nodes. So it actually makes it harder for people to use Tor. So I'm just saying all these things. So don't log in. Don't log into your bank account or your Amazon account or whatever. Don't download extensions into the Tor browser, and be aware that you're going to experience a lot of difficulties when you visit many different types of websites, right? And that the Tor browser is a little quirky, right? So, keeping those things in mind, let's get started on how to use the Tor browser, right? I mean, it's basically just a web browser, right? You can use this like a your normal browser. I can go to like google.com, like everyone else does. And this would be completely separate from everything else, and you can see it's taking sweet time here. And for Google, and I think this is google.com. Well, let's just look the trending searches. GameStop NFTs falling, man. I didn't know I needed this. Okay, well, if you want to go and do things, you can just do things like you normally would. Just don't log into anything, right? So like a great use case would be like, oh, let's say I want to read the news, right? And all these stupid like I hate like a lot of these dumb like news curation apps. I'm looking at you, Google News, where you have to like wade through all of these like articles or whatever, right? And they usually try to tailor them to match you based on your previous activity, right? But what if I want to like expand my horizons and I don't want to be caught in some stupid like ecosystem search bubble or whatever, right? I just want to go and read the website or whatever. And look at that, I can go read Engadget, like everyone else. I'm forced to click the same stupid European cookie button that everyone else is forced to. And look at that, you can go read your articles, right? Um, but and then when you're done, right, you can close the Tor browser, right? And what that gives you is closing the Tor browser. I'm gonna minimize it. Closing the Tor browser, right? When you click on the X button or whatever in your computer, gives you the peace of mind of it basically gives you a blank slate so that you can start over, and your identity when you connect to the rest of the internet from that point on is different from the last one that you used, right? And if you want a quick way of doing that, right, because it's probably tedious to go and click, close your window and open the Tor browser over and over again. And what they did was they created this little brush button right here. So if you click this brush button, right, it'll say the Tor browser will close all windows and tabs. All website sessions will be lost. Restart the Tor browser now to reset your identity, right? So I'm going to click yes, right? And you'll see it closes all of my tabs and close the Tor browser. And now I am started with a new blank slate, right? I want to see if this one's actually blocked by Google. So if we go to YouTube, because obviously we're gonna go to YouTube. Actually, this one. Okay, so this one's letting me through too. Um, and this is now a separate new thing that's different from the rest of your browsing, right? And all those other websites that I just visit, it's completely separate from that. And through this whole time, you've probably noticed, well, why aren't you full screening this, right? And you can full screen the Tor browser window, right? And I'll show you what happens when you do that, right? So if you maximize the Tor browser, you'll notice that there are these gray bars on the side of the browser here, right? You're like, well, what do these gray bars do, right? Is a lot of websites will try to track you based on your screen size, right? But not just your screen size, based on things like your window decorations, right? Or even something silly and innocent, right? And let me explain. So like the top bar right here for like GNOME that I have in front of me right now is different. It's different and differently sized proportionately to things like, let's say if I was using a Mac, right? And I have the title bar at the top of my Mac, right? That's different from someone who's using Windows, where they have that panel at the bottom where you can access, your start menu or whatever, right? And because all of those are different sizes, it's a way for websites to try to track people, right? And the Tor browser solves this by incrementally creating pixels to size your screen just the right way so that they can't do that. The reason why it does this is because this is how everyone else gets set up, right? And it also makes it so that you can't get any of those, those horrible, ugly black bars or if you're a degenerate who uses light mode, white bars that don't do anything, right? Those are some of the basic controls of the Tor browser. And after that, everything in Firefox is like pretty much the same, right? You can go and like you can even get access like some extra stuff right here, right? But let's say you want to bypass like a website, right? So let's say YouTube. In this instance, it isn't, but let's say that it is, right? Let's say that YouTube is blocking me, right? You can go to here, right? And this is actually a cool way to check where you're connected to, right? So you're seeing that from this browser, right? So this is from my internet, connects to the Netherlands, and then that connection from the Netherlands goes to Germany, and then that connection from Germany goes to Austria, and then that brings me to YouTube, right? It's a great example of how all these other servers that the Tor browser is bringing me to, right? So if I click on this thing right here, where it says new circuit, right? You'll notice that it changes the middle node and the exit node, right? So that way I can have a new connection when I visit the website, right? And if this is more so if I need to, bypass anything, or in a funnier situation. So I'll show you what this looks like if you if you go, anyone who knows anything about like good old games, like GOG.com, right? If you go here, especially if your browser is configured to meet like different languages, right? What if there's a I mean, it's not doing it this time, but like, what if you were, visiting a website which is in a language that you can't read, right? So, and that's an important one, right? Like, what if you don't know English very well, right? So, like, you would have to actually like shuffle this around so you get, like German as your primary language, right? That this is an important way for, people to actually not only there's multiple reasons why you would want to get a new identity, right? And plus it also keeps like you already have tabs open, it always keeps your tabs and things like that, right? So that's pretty much, and that's really the basics of the Tor browser. But now I mentioned it before, but I want to talk about some of the more nitty gritty, right? We're gonna go dive into the rabbit hole of the extension that is NoScript. So one thing I also want to go over now is I want to go over the Tor browser security settings, right? So if you go here to the shield, right, and click change, right, you can change the Tor browser security settings, right? So we have standard mode, which is just what you'd expect when you're just using, like stock Firefox, for example, right? But we also have safer, right, which disables JavaScript on non-HTTPS websites. That one isn't as big of a deal in today's day and age, because in today's day and age, 95% of all websites use HTTPS, right? And mostly because they have to, because they don't get good search engine optimization if they don't, right? That's why they have to do it. Also, some fonts are disabled. In the case of Ars Technica, this didn't happen, but some websites will just look ugly, or like the fonts will be replaced with like empty squares or whatever, right? And video and audio are now WebGL elements are click to play only. Because I can't stand auto playing video, right? But we also have the safest mode, right? And the safest mode does all of that, but JavaScript is just flat out disabled on every website, right? So in the safest mode here, if I refresh Ars Technica, right, you'll notice here that ad isn't loading anymore, right? And you'll also notice when I click on things, right, you'll notice that a lot of these websites are just loading, or will just load faster, right? And even if it just reading things like news articles, right, you can still read your news articles because it's just text, maybe like some pictures, right? It's usually not that big of a deal. You can still get some reading done, right? And but not, I mean, I'm not saying it's because it's like it's freaking for that particular reason. I'm saying it's like you should know this because accessing the Tor browser security settings they're there to help you, right? They're there to make sure that you're able to protect your own security when you visit other websites, right? Because it's a common problem that ads are used to deliver malware on other people's computers, right? Even not even, and this isn't even if you just click on them, right? Some of them work without you even clicking on them, right? And this is why web browsers are just so dangerous, right? Um, but that's pretty much it. I want to do an in-depth video on NoScript. I'm probably gonna save that for I'm gonna save that for a different time. So if you enjoyed a nice long afternoon deep dive into how the Tor browser functions and whatever, follow the next video. I'm gonna cover NoScript, right? NoScript is a great extension and this shield here is actually just pre-configured to use NoScript, right? So if you want to learn more about NoScript, you should hit the subscribe button, right? And if you want to say, hey, I enjoyed your video, go hit the like button. If you hit that like button, I will eat an onion for a video. Okay? If we hit 200 likes, I will eat an onion. Okay? All right. Thank you for watching. See you all later.